All right, moving on to our next session here. Let's go ahead and get our next group in here. So we've got, luckily, Marcel and Kate are still here with us as well. Akshay is coming in. Killian's here. Perfect. What's going on, guys?
Nothing much. How are you? It's a nice sunny morning in California for me.
Oh, it's actually it is sunny
Same
here
here.
today. I didn't even get to look out the window today. Oh man. Cool guys. Well, we've had thank you so much for bearing with us. We've had a few technical difficulties earlier. In order to make sure everything's still running smoothly, I'm gonna just actually share our presentation as we previously were talking about earlier before, just to make sure everything's still running smoothly. Kate, I hope you're okay on our floor. Like I said, it is haunted. Don't stay there after dark. Ask someone who can vouch for me is A-Rod, Ashley on our compliance team. She can vouch for this. I 100% will tell you this. I don't stay at the office late, guys.
Yes.
So,
They keep telling me the floor is haunted, and it seems so. Are you moving the slides, Thomas?
Yeah, I'll control them just since we had so many random ghosts that keep popping up. But we have a lot of cool stuff we want to show you guys. So that's kind of the main thing is I want to make sure you guys get to see some of this cool stuff. I'm going to take my hood off from my hot sauce because it's bothering me. And the green is blending in with the green screen. So let's get into this, shall we? All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Good old screen share. Okay, let me go and present. All right, let's have some fun, guys. All right, so we're talking about a whole new spell book using AMP to your advantage. All right, we got some amazing people as always. Kate, our VP Deliverability. Kate, glad you're still with us. Marcel, the Senior Director of Product Management at Yahoo. Glad you're still with us, bud. And introducing two more people, Akshay Dinesh, founder and CEO at Spellbound. Akshay, how's it going today?
Great. I'm doing amazing.
Awesome. Good to hear. Good to hear. And Killian Jackson, the product manager at Zip Recruiter, is here. Guys, super excited to have Killian in here. Killian, how's it going today, bud?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. We've got an amazing little panel, another panel up here, guys. Super awesome. Super excited about this. So let's get going, shall we? Okay. Marcel, I think you were going to take away this one.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about what AMP for email actually is, and then show some of the amazing things in theory, but also in actuality, like some real examples on what you can do there, and obviously, and hopefully also get some creative juices going for some senders. So AMP, really what it does, it stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages, which in itself is pretty lame. It was a technology which Google came up with. It doesn't really have anything specifically to do with email, but in 2000, I believe 18, 17, Google really approached a whole bunch of people and said, hey, we have this idea which is not new in itself, but we want to bring more relevant, more dynamic, more active content to the mailboxes. And they said, well, we realized that Google tried this in the past, Microsoft tried it in the past, Yahoo tried it in the past. Like we all had our little proprietary solutions. And obviously what all email senders know, proprietary solutions suck because you don't want to, build one email for Yahoo and build another one for Microsoft and get another one for Google, right? That doesn't make any sense. So Google had the idea, hey, we already have kind of like this technical framework. It is open source. It's called AMP. Let's leverage that to actually build something much better, to actually really enable highly relevant and dynamic content in email. And a lot of people should already be familiar with it because it is already out there. Pages were already being built in AMP. So let's roll with this. And we said, yeah, let's collaborate on that. So like I said, AMP brings engaging experiences to email. Think about it like a little mini app, right? So you're almost literally pulling the experience you usually have on the web, right? Traditionally, you send an email, static HTML, you click a button, it goes to a web page or an app. The user has to authenticate maybe. And then there the user does what you want him to do, right? It could be as simple as fill out a form. It could be as simple as just click another button. where it could be really, really complex, obviously. And AMP allows you to bring in some cases, maybe all of that functionality into an email and have the user do all of that right in there. And you can fetch up-to-date information, right? Today in HTML, you cannot do that. Once you put that content into your HTML email and you send it, that's it. It's stable. It's like you printed the flyer, delivered it. You can't change anything. Yes, you can change images with downloading them at the time you actually look at the email. As we just learned in the MPP session, that will not work in the future, especially for Apple anymore, right? They download the image, then it's cached. And then if the user opens this 5 days later, it's still the same old image. So dynamic content using images will not be possible. But with AMP, it is. And then users obviously can take actions right within the email. And we can show you some examples here of what that actually means. And if nothing else, with AMP, you can build just beautiful, animations into your email, even if you don't want to leverage the functionality. Today, it works with, like I said, obviously Google had the idea. It works with Google, Mail.ru, and obviously Yahoo Mail, which includes AOL Mail and all the small sub-brands we have. If you remember Netscape and CompuServe and all of these guys, it will work there as well. Or all of our partner brands we serve.
Something I want to mention here, the combination of just AOL, Yahoo, and Gmail covers almost like 85% of the consumer marketing emails. So even though the name of the providers supporting it is very like 3 or 4 at this point, it has a huge coverage among.
And correct. And Microsoft tested this as well. They had this in beta, then they decided not to continue because they paused on that. And I think as Microsoft always does that, they just monitor the market and then they will do it anyway. They have their own dynamic content solution, which is Active Card, I believe. That's what they call that. It's proprietary, but we'll see. Time will tell. So here's some examples what you can actually do. So this is from obviously Google, and this is what I said, right? You can reply to things right within the email. You don't have to go to another web page. If we use Google Docs or Office 365 in our work environments, we probably all have seen that. Somebody comments on a Google Doc, then you have to click, and you have to go to a web page, and then you do this again. With these things, you can do this right in line, and it just removes a lot of friction, and it's just more fun to use. The next example shows actually a real world example, which was introduced last year, right? So this was a brick and mortar store, like a bike shop. You actually had to go there, but because of COVID, they really wanted to limit the number of people who could go there, and you had to make an appointment. And as it typically is, you have to go to a website. You have to, maybe sign in, or maybe it's Doodle-like. But in this case, you could do this all within the email. Poof, get the email, open it, select the time, poof, done. And you can get the confirmation right within the same email, right? Traditional flows, you do one thing, you click on that page, there you do your thing, you get another email, right? This is just adding to the email fatigue and overload our users already have. Right, you don't need 3 emails telling you that you bought this thing, that you shipped it, and all the other stuff. Right, it would be great if you could just do this in one go. And that's the.
And this is something actually I want to highlight. As an email platform company, of course, we want people to send more and more emails, but we all know that especially during pandemic, we are spending more time on our computers and we are receiving many emails. With AMP, you will receive less but more targeted emails, as Marcel mentioned. If you purchase an airline ticket, everything will be there, all the confirmation. Even with this example, even your booking of like when you want to go and pick up that flight. So this is already very, very exciting stuff.
So the next example, you see something straightforward loan calculator. I think, especially in the US, we're all so accustomed to these kind of emails. Hey, compare your insurance, compare your loan, blah, 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 blah. But then usually it makes you click through a whole bunch of websites. They might be more or less legit. But with AMP, you can do this all within the email and get a quote or whatever right there. And then, like I said, with the next example, right, this is kind of looking at the future. Some already doing that. But you can actually buy things right within email, right? We know that a lot of people start window shopping, so to speak, or online window shopping with email, right? We have brands sending these, hey, we have these new deals, we have these new offers. With AMP, you can send highly relevant and personalized offers to your users, right? You literally send the same email, same content to all your users, and then Alex is opening the email, or Kate or Killian, and they all see different content based on who they are, also when they actually open the email. And then I could be able to, just click, add to cart. They can even browse like different sizes, different colors, all kinds of stuff. And then maybe even check out, right, within email, right? No need to go somewhere else, go to an app, go to a web page, all there in the same email.
Yeah, I'm like 90% sure that I actually used the same Target email the other day to buy these AirPods because my old ones actually died last week. So I actually got to use that, and it was actually very smooth, very smooth. So, all right, let's move on here. Looks like you had another example. Yeah,
this is just because, like I said before, people when they hear AMP email, it's like, oh, it's just fancy animations, right? And it's not worth doing this. And some companies out there, that's all they do. And I argue, this is already better than your standard email, right? It already delights your users, and you should be striving to do that versus just sending this same old stale flyer. But this is somebody, Niven, email developer in Scotland. He basically just wanted to play around.
He's here.
Oh,
yeah.
There we go. He wanted to play around with it, and this is amazing, right? This is an actual car configurator where you can, select color and different wheel styles and all the things you actually do on a web page, right? Imagine doing this in the real life, like instead of sending an email, hey, we have this new car, whatever it is. I mean, I don't think anybody can send an email like that, but you can actually both delight the user and then convert at the end of the day, right? Just put a checkout button there. Add that car to my cart.
Right. We'll have to ask Niven one day what it was like working with McLaren. That's really cool. Wow. All right, and looks like Killian. If you can, oops, I actually opened this up. Oh yeah, there's Niven's. Cool. That is pretty dope. Awesome. All right, moving back on here. We're gonna close this out. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but my cats are fighting downstairs. It's close to Halloween, yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Marcel. So at ZipRecruiter, we're exploring a number of different ways that AMP can make our emails more dynamic and engaging. And the examples shown here are survey email, submitting a job application with a one-click apply, and updating job seeker profile. These are all opportunities to improve the email experience with AMP. And we offer these features currently in static emails that when you click them, it sends the user to the full experience on site. And AMP offers the ability to bring these interactive features into the email client itself, like Marcel was discussing earlier. And the key here is bringing the seamless experience that users are familiar with on site into an email in a way that feels intuitive. And we want these features to feel natural and at home within email so that users don't have to learn a new technology or even think about the fact that they're using AMP. And diving into the survey email, we found that requiring users to click the survey link, fill out the survey on a third-party site, had negative impacts on our conversion rates and required us to actually expand the audience that we sent this email to so that we could get reliable data to make decisions to move forward on. And so I'll pass it off to Akshaya, who will show how AMP and Spellbound's platform can improve this survey experience by bringing the survey itself into the email.
Yeah, thanks, Killian. So we decided to take this challenge of improving conversion rates. And so we amplified the ZipRecruiter survey email. And here's a sort of live demo of the amplified survey version. So you can see that there's a small little widget in the center of the email where you can actually click into each question, select responses from multiple choice, even add your own inputs. And when you click submit, the entire form gets submitted completely within the context of the email, and you never have to leave to an external website again. And so if ZipRecruiter were using AMP instead of HTML emails, we might be getting much higher conversion rates. So here's just one example of how we can do that. But actually, all three of the use cases that Killian mentioned are examples of places where we could leverage AMP to make them dynamic. Next slide. Cool. So I guess why is AMP great for brands, not just for ZipRecruiter, but for most of the brands that leverage email as a strategy for their brand? Well, one, it's a much better experience for their customers. So for consumers, people like me and you, when we're scrolling through our email inbox and trying to be productive and efficient, it's a way better user experience if we can take quick actions from right within an email rather than an external experience. And because it's a better user experience for consumers, of course, that also means we have higher conversion rates to taking those actions for the brands. And so it's a win-win situation where you have higher a better user experience for consumers and more conversions for brands. And the third kind of accidental benefit that you get from using AMP to embed actions inside your emails is that you actually get more accurate analytics on how many people who are opening your email actually end up taking the action itself. And so, as we just heard from the Apple privacy panel right before this, open rates is not always the best metric to sort of like figure out if your email is working. And so being able to actually track if, like, for example, you're trying to convert them to a survey response, instead of tracking the open rate, you can actually track how many people finish the entire survey within that email itself. Next slide. And so so now, we're all sold, like AMP is so cool. It's clearly the most exciting thing that's happening to email since a really long time. And so now let's figure out how can we actually build our own AMP emails. So I'll walk through a couple of resources and tips on how to get started. So first tip is, depending on who you are, if you are an email developer and you're very comfortable with programming and coding your own emails, then the way to get started is pretty simple. So first, you want to make sure your domain passes SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. And this is really important. Even if you're not building an AMP email, it's still really great practice to have these all enabled for your email domain. But they are required for AMP emails on most email clients, so you will have to create them anyway. You'll also need to create HTML and TXT fallback versions. So just in case there's an email client that can't support AMP, or maybe the Wi-Fi is really bad and for a particular customer or consumer the AMP fails, you still want to have a fallback that they get to see and still is just as great as if you didn't include AMP at all. And lastly, you want to test and validate to make sure that the AMP code that you're writing is perfect. And the way to do that is at amp.dev, there's a few playgrounds for different email clients where you can basically write your code, test it, send test emails, and make sure that it's looking great. So once you have all of that, you're good to go if you're a developer to get started and create your first AMP email and implement it. Next slide. Now, what happens if you are not an email developer and instead you're a marketer and you still want to be able to work with AMP? Well, fortunately, there are many ways for you to get started anyway, and that's exactly what Spellbound does as well. We are a no-code platform to help you build your first AMP email without having to write a single line of code. And we also give you one-on-one custom support, so we can help you build your first campaign together and give you all the support that you need to get started, as well as integrating with different third-party services. However, there's also a list of other AMP partners. So if you check out the same website, amp.dev, you'll also get access to a list of third-party services from builders to plugins and testers and things like that, where you can basically get help on creating your first AMP email, whether you choose to code or not.
Cool.
And that's basically it.
Awesome, guys. All right, time for some Q&A, shall we?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Let me close this. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Cool. So Q&A time. But please, in the words of James Brown, please put your questions in the question tab. And in order to keep them, keep the flow moving, please upload the ones that you want us to answer, because there's a lot of them, and we only have so much time left with these amazing people. So let's jump into it, shall we? Okay, first one from Whitney. She asked, can you use AMP within your ESP, any ESP, or do you have to use it in a separate platform?
So I can answer. Or Kate, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Marcel.
Yeah, so I'm probably answering two questions in one here. So from a technical perspective, the way these AMP emails work is that it basically adds another MIME type. So today, when you send an email, right, you'll typically have a text plain MIME type, you should have, and an HTML MIME type, right? And the way this works, if you send this to an HTML-capable email client, which today are almost all of them, the HTML MIME type is displayed. If the email client is not capable of doing this, it falls back on text plain. And it's the same idea. So basically, this adds a third MIME type, AMP. And if you send this email to an email client which supports AMP, AMP is displayed. If you send it to one which doesn't support AMP, then the HTML MIME type is displayed, so on and so forth. And then what does it mean for how you send one? Obviously, you need to have an MTA or an ESP, which is able to send that additional MIME type. And today, these are probably almost all of them. I'm not aware of any large ESP who does not support the act of transmitting this additional AMP MIME type. Creating AMP, that's a different story.
So just to add I'm going to have a follow-up question to that question. For example, at Spellbound Akshaya, if you create an AMP format, like if you insert the AMP component inside the email and the client doesn't support it, let's say Apple, what are you guys doing in order to overcome that challenge?
Yeah, totally. So if you're building AMP emails using Spellbound, we actually take care of the fallbacks for you. So we can automatically convert your email to gracefully fallback into all the different email clients. And we actually do some hacky stuff behind the scenes to also imitate some of the interactivity, even for email clients that don't support AMP. And so I don't remember if any of you have been around and used email in the early 2000s. There were actually some notion of interactive email, even pre-AMP. And so we bring back some of that magic to even your static HTML email so that no matter what you build, your email is as interactive as it can be and looks beautiful on every client.
Excellent. And actually, the next question, you can probably answer that, Akshaya. Yeah. What are you using to build these AMP emails? The platform that's...
Yeah, well, I'm using Spellbound, but because that's what we do. So if you're interested in checking us out too, feel free to always email me. My email right now is akshaya@spellbound.xyz. But also, there's a bunch of other tools out there. So as I mentioned, if you check out the amp.dev website, there's a list of partners and resources listed on that website as well. And so if any of those seem interesting or useful, you can definitely reach out and get started with any of those. But my email is always open. I'm happy to help debug AMP code or get together and help out any way I can as well.
Thank you.
Have a good old AMP party. That's what that is.
Yeah.
And to give a shout out to Madison, actually, she was trying to find the URL for Spellbound. So Madison, I went ahead and added Akshaya's email so you can reach out to her, and went ahead and threw that in the chat channel as well. So if anyone wants to reach out to her, because I freaking love her logo. It's so cool. If you haven't seen it, by the way. ZipRecruiter, yours is pretty cool, and Yahoo, yours is pretty cool. But Akshaya has a magic ball. It's pretty cool. So. All right, and then moving on here. Okay, this one from Perla. She wanted to know what will happen for users from Microsoft accounts, for example. Would they be able to interact with the AMP, dynamic emails? Is that possible?
Yeah, this is basically that's what I meant. I kind of answered that already. So Microsoft or any client which doesn't support AMP will just continue to display the HTML part. And then obviously, thanks to the magic of Spellbound, that HTML part might still have some even better experience than what you traditionally have today. But yeah, from a pure technical perspective, it would just display HTML.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. All right, and then last but not least, security concerns. What about the security concerns?
I can answer this one maybe. With regards to security concerns, it's really awesome that you're thinking about this. Part of the reason why AMP was even created was because there are so many security concerns with inserting JavaScript, which is usually what gives you that interactivity inside of an email. And so that's really the reason why AMP is here. Is it's a much more contained, smaller more minimized version of JavaScript. It's a framework that allows you to build these interactive experiences within the sort of boundaries of security concerns and making sure that we don't have any of those issues popping up from inserting just our own JavaScript into an email. So AMP actually already takes care of a lot of that for you.
Nice.
I also want to add one more thing to that for the security, because this question, even in conferences, there have been lots of security concerns among the security team. The add component are not allowed in the AMP email. So that alone is keeping users safe. So there is no third-party features inside AMP. So in reality, AMP emails are actually more secure than the old version.
Yeah, and that's what Akshaya basically said. It's a subset of AMP in a way. It's a very well-defined list of capabilities, obviously using JavaScript. But the reason why you can't do all these things you can do in HTML on a web browser, and the reason why you can't do that in webmail today is because of security, right? We on the receiving side, we have to strip out so much, CSS and JavaScript because it is a security concern. This is also the reason why, Microsoft renders things slightly different than we do, than Gmail, right? And AMP is really this attempt of having one standard where okay, you can do X and it looks the same across all these email clients, and it actually is also a better experience, and you can bring real content into the email in this case.
Nice. Okay, guys. Well, let me see here. Guys, looks like we are all out of time today. And I want to thank our amazing panelists, Marcel, Kate, Killian, Akshaya. Thank you guys so much for being here today, taking time out of your busy day to be here. I know you have a hectic schedule. So everyone, please, I want to see some love in the chat. Give these guys some love and support. See some emojis for these guys because they took time out of the day to talk about AMP because they love this so much, and that's what's awesome. So Marcel, Kate, Akshaya, Killian, guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us directly. My email is kate@mailgun.com. Marcel, you want to share yours, Killian? Actually.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Yeah, guys, feel free if you have any more questions about AMP or anything else related, please feel free to reach out to these guys. So,
yeah. Thank you for having us. This was so fun.
Yeah, thank
awesome,
you,
guys.
Yep.
Well, I hope you guys have a great Halloween weekend. Be safe out there. Have some fun, and I hope to see everyone soon. All right.
Thank you.
Cool. Bye, guys. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.
Like